Nikolai Ryabov, Deputy of the State Duma of the Russian Federation, Member of the Parliament, the faction of the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. These are the letters which I received today, but I'd like to get back to one of the pending issues. It's an appeal from Mr. Dmitry Granev from Nizhny Novgorod. It says, "Dear Nikolai Fedorovich, this petition is addressed to you by Dmitry Granev, wrongfully convicted by the court of Nizhny Novgorod region for acclaimed bribing. I'm asking you to clear up the situation with my wrongful conviction. At the end of 2010, I bought shares at the Chugunovsky alcohol plant. In a short period of time, approximately in 2 months, I started to receive threats to sell my stake to the security service officers of Nizhny Novgorod region. I started to get threats as well as proposals. It was decided to stop the plant and put it up for sale. Within 5 months of 2011, I constantly felt pressure towards my business and to me personally. In May 2011, I became a victim of a setup when I was invited to a meeting with the security service officers where I was arrested for an alleged attempted bribing. But there was no money. They did not provide the video file because it would be clearly seen whether there was money or not, whether I was bribed.
Где я был задержан якобы за попытку дачи взятки. Денег не передавалось, что доказывает тот факт, что не предоставили видео.
After my arrest, on the 31st of May, I was put into a pre-detention center where I spent 2.5 months, 2 of which I was kept in a solitary confinement, isolated cell. When my legal counsels started to investigate the situation, it became obviously clear that the situation with my arrest was fabricated.
Ситуация предвзятая. Меня в течение 2 месяцев.
During these 2 months in a pre-detention center, I was not called anywhere for questioning. Some people, probably security service officers, visited me several times, offering me to bribe a State Duma deputy for an alleged purchase of a mandate. When my case was taken to court, the judge studied it, and the judge decided to put me under home arrest with a written pledge not to leave the house because the investigator refused to consider the expert report. After that decision, the judge was fired in 20 days. A new judge was appointed, Mr. Ryabov. He's a professional judge, but he did not schedule the preliminary hearing on my case, where I could have exercised my right for a trial by jury. I think that the judge did not schedule the preliminary hearing because the jury could have understood that this case was a setup and could have been passed an acquitting verdict, because I'm not guilty in this situation. So, on the 5th of October 2012, in the building of the court of Nizhny Novgorod, a wrongful verdict was taken, which is proved by my counsels. I strictly disagree with the verdict.
Категорически не согласен.
Мы с моим коллегой-адвокаты в течение всего расследования и рассмотрения
Sergei Shumila, a lawyer, and Alexei Kireev, a lawyer.
осуществляли его защиту. Проблема основная.
We, my colleague and I, are Mr. Granev's legal counsels during the investigation and the trial period. The main problem was that the lower court, the court of the first instance, violated Mr. Granev's right for the defense, stipulated by the Criminal Procedure Code, such as the right for a trial by jury. We filed many appeals about it, But irrespective of this, neither Supreme Court nor any other supervisory instances upheld it, and our appeal was never rounded up. Though asked to bring the case to trial in order to secure the right for the client for a trial by jury, we would like to take into account that the Criminal Procedure Code stipulates that the court duty is to explain the rights to a suspect, and the court should have done it. Mr. Granev, who was deprived of this right, did not have a chance to explain and prove his position to the court. He found himself in a trap. Moreover, there is no other way for him except for filing an appeal to the European Court on Human Rights to prove his innocence.
И получилось, что он оказался в тупике, и других возможностей уже доказать свою правоту, ну, кроме, соответственно, обращения к Европейскому правам человека, у него уже не имеет.
Я родился в городе
I was born in
Горьком.
Gorky City, grew up in the district where workers live. I started to work as a technician when I finished school, and I worked at a plant nearby.
Был призван в армию.
Then I was drawn to color, and I served in the Soviet army as a paratrooper in Fergana. First the 57th Regiment, then 345th.
Окончание
After that, I graduated from the university, and after the graduation, I built up my own successful company, which created working places for people, and I paid taxes. Everything was perfect,
всё было хорошо.
up to the moment when my business became a point of interest for the security service
Проблемы начались
officers.
после того, как я вступил в коммунистическую
All my problems began when I became a member of the Communist Party.
октябре месяце.
I joined the party in October 2009, and already in November 2009, one of my plant's license was revoked. All my other companies face similar problems. Endless financial activity, auditing, and constant pressure from the security service officers. Various inspections are still in process at my companies. It all ended in my wrongful conviction.
В конце 2010 года
At the end of the year 2010, we had a complicated situation with the grain caused by the crop harvesting.
было остановить свою деятельность и
Alexey Matyushin, General Director of the enterprise.
лицензия на основной вид деятельности. На
The
предприятии
license
работало
period
100 человек.
for the main production expired. Almost 100 people worked at this plant. This plant was one of the most important infrastructure objects in Yuzhny village of Varatinsky region.
Снабжение, все.
In order to maintain the production process and to obtain a new license, my plant had to make additional investments to renovate and upgrade one of the plant's production units. These significant investments were planned to be raised from the main shareholders, but the main shareholder had his own difficulties. As a result, we failed to get a new license, faced problems with taxes and payments. The plant was stopped, and we had to cut down the personnel, providing them with all the extra payments.
Но в связи с тем, что у акционера возникли свои трудности, мы не смогли податься на лицензирование, и за отгруженный спирт у нас сразу возникли задолженности по налогам за акцизы. И нужно было, поскольку предприятие не работало, нужно было людей сокращать и обеспечить им все выплаты.
Когда я находился под
When I was
домашним
placed under home arrest, my plant faced problems with tax and payments, property and real estate tax payments. In order to save the plant from bankruptcy initiated by the Federal Tax Authority, I had to sell my personal property, my apartment, so that I could pay salaries and settle debts in order to keep this plant working, the key employer in the region, to save the working places in the region. Due to the plant's debt, the district inspection filed a bankruptcy petition to the arbitration court of Nizhny Novgorod region, and the bankruptcy procedure took about 2 years. Different measures were proposed to help the plant, including financial recovery measures, but these measures were
Поднять
opposed.
именно там и процедуру оздоровления.
The creditors reached a settlement agreement, which is adopted by the court's decision.
Далее было кредиторами утверждено мировое соглашение, а поскольку кредиторов у завода было больше, чем голосов, чем у налоговой инспекция вынуждена была принять. И решением суда это мировое соглашение было утверждено.
Во время моего нахождения
When on remand, the investigation was going on, Mr. Bulatin, the investigator, put my apartment under an illegal arrest. The court of Nizhny Novgorod overruled this decision and the arrest of my apartment was removed. I think that my personal property arrest was a kind of psychological pressure to force me admit my guilt.
факт, что квартиру Следственный комитет
The investigation committee evaluated my apartment cost of only 10% from the real market price. The federal security officers even demanded that my kids should be expelled from school, and only due
в школе
to Ryabov Nikolai Fedorovich, the deputy, and his deputy appeals to the
Министерство образования
prosecutor's office and to the Minister of Education of Nizhny Novgorod region, my kids still go to school.
происходили вещи довольно
There were many violations in the process of the detention and interrogation.
ностальгия.
I was arrested around 1:30 at Nostalgia Restaurant, taken to the investigation committee and kept there till 11 o'clock in the evening, where I was constantly asked to give them my block of shares.
После того, как арестовали моего
They also demanded that I should give 20 million rubles bribe.
и пригласил меня на встречу, сказал,
In 2 weeks after my husband's detention, a Federal Security Service office called me and invited me to a meeting in my husband's interest, as he explained. Well, I came there. When I came to the meeting, I was told to transfer my husband's business on my name and to give half of it to them. And only after that, as they explained, my husband would be released. I reported about this meeting to our legal counsels. These people are officers of the Federal Security Service of Nizhny Novgorod. I reported this to the Bureau of Internal Affairs of FSB with the surnames of the participants, but the Bureau considered that there were no violations.
Экспертиза, которую
Later, the expert report made by Kufalin Institute proved that the whole situation was fabricated.
полученный ряд
Elena Galyashina, professor of the chair of criminal expertise. During the investigation, Mr. Graniev's legal counsel seriously questioned the video if the presented video was a full, correct, not amended, or deliberately cut version. Mr. Graniev confirmed the fact of these meetings, but insisted that the content and the order of the discussions were changed or deleted on video and audio files. Graniev insisted that he was provoked and induced and that he did not have any other choice in this situation rather than react in a way recorded on the audio file. He was forced to do it. This is the investigation we made. It's interesting that in this situation we had the video and audio files both with the traces of editing confirming that they were not authentic.
потому что он был
Many internet surfers who know SoundForce, a special program designed for editing.
интересно, что
This program was used to record and edit the audio file and similar program for the video file.
записи имели следы,
We reported this fact to our legal opinion.
которые однозначно говорили,
We reported that files were not authentic as they were partially copied, and they are not full, which can be caused only by special file editing program.
тоже такой же аналогичный редактор
But
видео.
according to state and private specialized expert organizations, these changes are called sectional.
которые однозначно говорят о том, что это не оригинал, а что это было
Moreover, the analysis of the dialogue recorded on these files showed that the expressions and phrases used can be misleading.
применение звуковых редакторов, что по методикам, которые используются и в государственных, и негосударственных экспертных учреждениях.
I can set several examples. You will make your proposals. What can you offer? You have to go all the way on because you just can't quit.
Сказал, что там были такие высказывания, которые, конечно, могли быть восприняты очень неоднозначно. Ну вот,
On the other
например,
hand, such phrases cannot be considered as examples of provocation to illegal action or inducement.
например, вот вы свои предложения выдвинете, а вот вы что предлагаете? Но вы же должны идти до конца, вы же не можете остановиться. То есть вот такие какие-то высказывания, которые, конечно, прямо не являются подталкиванием к совершению каких-то противоправных действий, но если они являются остатком от
But on the
каких-то
other hand, if they are part of sentences which were deleted or edited, and if the whole conversation could be restored, they probably may prove that the legal counsels were partly right. And definitely everything should have been presented to the court. Before the trial at the district court, I received the expert's report proving that the audio files were edited. This report was added to the criminal file, the court took it into account, and further to our appeals proceeded a phonoscope check, which firstly was received by the district court and later by the regional court.
Фоноскопическую экспертизу, которая поступила
During the
сначала в
trial at the district court, the results of this check were announced.
Данное дело было передано в областной суд. В ходе рассмотрения в областном суде данное заключение было озвучено.
Three experts reported that the file contained the section or partial changes, but no traces of editing. The meaning of word section changes was explained to us by the expert Mr. Zvezdin, who was later questioned during the trial. According to his opinion, it means that there is no beginning and end of this conversation.
Начало и отсутствовал конец.
But this statement totally contradicts the statements made by the prosecution witnesses, such as the statement made by the witnesses during the trial. She confirmed that the meeting lasted not less than 30 minutes, but the audio file is 15 minutes only. Where are the rest 15? They cannot be the end or the beginning for the conversation. Where did the 15 minutes conversation vanish? We have no answer.
15-минутный разговор, это не может быть ни началом, ни концом. То есть 15 минут какого-то разговора, который предшествовал дальнейшим действиям.
One of the main witnesses for the prosecution from Federal Security Service explained that the part of the conversation with the waitress at the restaurant was removed from the audio file. This is one of the main contradictions, and we stressed it in our appeal. The two witnesses for the prosecution testified that the part of the video file is missing, but the expert said that the file lacked only the beginning and the end.
Эксперт поясняет, что только отсутствует начало и конец.
But this is not the most contradicting fact. We have thoroughly examined the expert report and figured out that he used the only one monograph.
Тоже изъято, но не изъяты.
We filed the appeal to the Minister of Justice to check what methods of the analysis can be used.
Смешное в данном деле.
And the answer was as follows.
Мы, изучив данное экспертное заключение, запросили, удивились, что эксперт пользовался только одной монографией и обратились в Минюст с
There are
разъяснением.
four methods which our expert Zvezdin didn't use.
Вообще, да, и существует ли вообще. Нам поступил ответ из Минюст, который был приобщен в ходе судебного заседания, что существует
We checked the
4.
qualification of all three experts.
Наш эксперт Звездин, Нижегородский, ими не воспользовался.
The Minister of Justice reported that one of our trial experts was not at all authorized for such type of expertise. Therefore, we asked the court to exclude this report of expert, as unreliable, but we were denied. Instead, our expert report and appeal was excluded, claiming that the defense side had no right to have access to such reports.
Отказано в связи с тем, что защитник не вправе, адвокат не вправе получать данные виды экспертиз.
я присутствовала в судебном
I was
заседании.
at the trial as an expert. The court listened to my conclusions attentively, but it seemed that the court ignored them. They considered the part of the video file from the unknown sources as reliable enough to be the basis for the
Была
verdict.
представлена в виде фрагментарной
We
копии.
stated this as a cassational appeal and in a petition for judicial review, but we were explained that the court took the right decision. Therefore, we were forced to file an appeal to the Constitution Court.
Вы, ребята,
Our main objective was complaint that our expert report was excluded and that we had no right to have access to such a report.
суд указал исключать данные
The Cassational Court made a decision that we did not have the right to have access to such reports and should be considered by the court together with other evidence and reports.
данные исключения получать.
We filed a new appeal to the chairman of the Supreme Court stating that the right to protection was violated as well as one of the experts' report was not considered. We received an answer signed by the deputy chairman saying that
Нарушения указали
there is no sufficient basis for revising the court's decision.
дело касаемо заключения специалиста.
So now we seem to be in a contradictory situation. On the one hand, the Constitutional Court confirmed that the legal counsel had the right for the expert report. The court should add it to the criminal file, consider and accept it. But on the other hand, judging by the current situation and the practice confirmed by the Supreme Court, the court could do what it wanted.
Однако
The court can add it to the criminal file, but may not consider or evaluate the report. I would like to stress that the last time when we filed an appeal to the chairman of the Supreme Court for the case to be reopened, our defendant was checked by the polygraph, lie detector.
я хотел бы обратить внимание еще на такой момент, что уже в последний раз,
The
когда мы
polygraph specialist made a report that our client was telling the truth.
наш подзащитный перед тем, как
We
обратиться,
sent this report together with an appeal to the Supreme Court,
специалист дал заключение, что он говорит
but with
правду.
the same result. They did not see the basis to reopen this case.
К нашей жалобе, которая направлялась в Верховный суд. Ну, результат я уже сказал, что у нас основания пересмотра нет.
Все документы,
Taking into
которые
consideration the documents presented by his legal counsels, I am absolutely sure that this case is fabricated and it was wrongfully convicted, because all the independent expert reports confirmed that the audio file submitted to the court had been edited, and the court made a decision basing in fact on that audio file. He did not give any money to anybody, at least this fact was not recorded on the video file or elsewhere.
ссылался только на эту практически
The
фактически
fact that
аудиозапись.
he had a sufficient amount of money with him does not prove anything.
Не вручал, нигде ничего не было зафиксировано.
As for me, if I was stopped and my pockets were inspected, it would be easy to accuse me for bribery as well, because I often have considerable sum of money with me.
Проверить мои, так скажем, карманы. Можно сказать, что я к кому-то шел.
This court decision is absurd.
Поэтому вот это абсурдное решение
Legal
суда
counsels are working hard on the initial verdict to be reconsidered by the regional court, the Supreme Court, because the decision was taken without thorough analysis of the case reports. To put it mildly,
философски, я бы сказал так корректно, отписки, это означает о том, что наша правовая
it
система...
means that the judicial system in Russia is not working. It's almost impossible to find the rule of law. My legal counsels presented sufficient evidence of my actual innocence in court, but they were rejected. All this evidence was left unreviewed and unattended. The expert report stating that the audio file had been edited was rejected. The testimonies of the witnesses confirming the fact that one of the Federal Security Service officers demanded a bribe was not accepted.
Где-то в 6 метрах, когда была на заводе проверка, и где он.
It happened during the plant inspection when this officer told me that I had to cooperate with him like other people did, and all my problems were caused by the fact that I did not cooperate with him. Some people witnessed this from a distance of 6 meters and testified later. But these testimonies, like many others, were not accepted as well. I was deprived of the right for trial by jury. The expert report confirming that the video file had been edited was not accepted. This case was a setup, and I was sentenced to a fine of 48 million rubles. The prosecutor asked for 7.5 years of sentence of rigorous imprisonment and 92 million rubles fine, and the court decision was 84 million rubles. Now, I am wrongfully convicted only because I refused to give my business to security service officers. I think that, firstly, this was deliberately done to intimidate other businessmen in Nizhny Novgorod region who might want to resist the harsh takeovers of their business by security service officers. Some businessmen have already added their video on YouTube containing the information and video files about this criminal group, how they arrange inspections and transfer money. These officers failed the polygraph testing but still work on the same place as their children or relatives of top-level officials. There is also a video with the Federal Security Service officer confirming that this case was a setup, a trap, who was behind this and who proved this false evidence. Everything is available. We filed an appeal to Federal Security Service Bureau of Internal Affairs, but with no result. Probably they wanted to protect the reputation of the Federal Security Service. I recorded my conversation with Federal Security Officer after my conviction, and you can clearly hear when he said that 80% of middle and big-sized commercial companies of Nizhny Novgorod region are controlled by Federal Security Service, and 20% by the administration. So this is the shooting by hidden camera. It shows the way an unknown businessman gives a bribe to a Federal Security Service officer for providing a so-called roof for his business and for settling his question with the administration.
Я также обращался за
I
помощью.
turned to Nikolai Fedorovich Ryabov, the deputy of the State Duma of the Russian Federation. When Ryabov understood the situation, he sent appeals to the Supreme Court and to the prosecutor's office. But the responses were similar. Since the person was found guilty by court's decision, it's legal and it's according to the law. Probably in our country, convictions prevail over acquittal verdicts, and security service officers want to protect their reputation irrespective of whether an officer committed a crime or not. Why do we have to put so much effort to clear up and understand the situation with Granev? Because all commercial enterprises in our country are in a complicated situation. If you do not give bribe, you will not resolve your business problems. If you give a bribe, you will be sentenced.
Не дать взятку, значит, не решишь никаких проблем. Даешь взятку, значит, будешь сидеть.
It's almost impossible to develop business in this environment in Russia. That's why smart, gifted people often prefer to go abroad. They say it's better for them to work and develop business there as they feel more legally protected. But here, instead of helping a businessman to develop his business, create working places which will result in collecting more taxes for the federal and regional budget, we are seeking for the way to obstruct them. As for Granev, his plant suffered from the harsh takeover. As a result, today the plant production is stopped because the license expired. There is no owner of his plant and nobody is in charge of the production process.
действительно предприятие остановлено.
It's really impossible to live like that.
Потому что нет ни лицензии, нет ни хозяина, нет ни возможности заниматься выпуском этой продукции. Вместо того, чтобы помочь этому человеку. Так жить нельзя.
Также я обращался
I
за
also
помощью.
asked Titov, the ombudsman, for help. He sent letters and filed appeals. They made the expert report that I was illegally, wrongfully convicted, that many violations happened during the trial. But suddenly, he stopped the activity and proposed that I should defend myself in court. All my subsequent requests remained unanswered.
Все повторные обращения также.
Now my documents are in the European Court for Human Rights. We are waiting for a
Правам
response.
человека. Будем ждать ответа. Для того, чтобы
In
доказать,
order to
что
prove my innocence, I voluntarily testified on polygraph, a lie detector. The polygraph report confirmed that I was telling the truth. My business was taken in a harsh way. I did not bribe anybody.
найдутся люди, которые смогут разобраться.
I do believe that in our judicial system there are people capable of clearing up the situation, and businessmen will be able to work in legal, comfortable environment for the prosperity of their own country. I think that Graniv and his legal counsels will continue to defend their rights. They filed an appeal to the European Court, and I believe they will find the justice finally. It's important that he should be restored in all his civil rights. It's important that law and order should be established. From an expert's point of view, the court should have considered the evidence provided. But the interpretation of it in the final verdict shows that the court did not examine all the evidence properly and completely.
Представленные доказательства, и он их оценил в приговоре, но оценка, которая дана этим доказательствам...
In my opinion, the court's verdict in the part of examination of evidence is not justified.
Свидетельствовать о том, что суд провел исследование полное и всестороннее. На
This
мой взгляд,
verdict cannot be of a legitimate status.
которые вот в этой части приговора...
We face a rough violation of law, and it can be basis for the reversal of the conviction, and the case must be referred for a new examination. There is no other way.
Практикой вот именно по уголовным делам.
We think that the Supreme Court should have done this, taking into consideration lots of appeals they received. And some of Supreme Court officials should have monitored the situation and referred the case for a new examination.
По сути, иного пути и быть не может, поэтому мы считаем, что...
My colleagues and I are sure that this case should be reopened due to many violations during the trial. We do insist on the review of this case in court, as the violations of law almost broke a man's life.
Дело и принять все меры к тому, чтобы оно было направлено на новое рассмотрение.
Мы с моим коллегой считаем, что данное дело, конечно, должно быть пересмотрено с теми грубыми нарушениями уголовно-процессуального закона, которые были допущены при его рассмотрении. И мы, конечно, бы настаивали на его пересмотре, поскольку данные нарушения, которые были допущены, они фактически сломали судьбу человека.
I think that if people are guilty for bribing, they should be punished. But bringing to trial an innocent person is also a serious offense. The case of Mr. Graniv is an example of such offense. Can you imagine bribing without one person giving and another person taking money? The money was seized from Mr. Graniv without any legitimate grounds during his arrest, and the sums are different. In case report, it's 200,000 rubles. In court's report, 1,200,000 rubles. The judge of the regional court of Nizhny Novgorod violated all the constitutional rights. He did not let Graniv use his right for the trial by jury, and many other violations took place. Our audience is probably asking if we can help Graniv in his complicated situation. I do believe we can help. Our audience is probably asking if we can help Graniv Dmitry in his complicated situation. I do believe we can help.
Да, я считаю, что мы ему поможем, потому что я до сих пор поддерживаю связь с его
I'm still in touch
адвокатами.
with his legal counsels and experts, and we're working together on the issue of his defense.
Над всеми теми задачами, которые необходимо в ходе защиты прав и интересов этого гражданина решить. Я думаю, что мы
And I'm
всё-таки
sure we will find the truth and re-establish the rule of law, and that will give hope to our citizens and businessmen that the country's legal framework and legality is
в нашей
maintained.
стране можно восстанавливать закон, а это позволит нашим
And I think it will, to some extent, help our citizens and our businessmen to take the right decision, whether to leave the country, to immigrate, escaping lawlessness, or stay in their own country.
на принятие решений наших людей, уезжать за границу или не уезжать от бесправия в России.